All right, PV Nation, how you doing? It is Monday morning, and I know it's been a long weekend. We're gonna get through it. I am the radio guy, the Dr. Mike Prince. Welcome to another episode of the Mike Prince Show, brought to you daily here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network. The social media handles for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram is at the Mike Prince Show. The YouTube channel is Open Mic Broadcast Network, and the website is obnradio.com. And without any further delay, we'll jump right into today's episode. We do know that the Panthers fell short this weekend at Jackson, Mississippi, losing by a score of 34-28. A lot of you now are wondering what has taken so long for Connolly to be put in. Easier said than done in most cases. However, Connolly had a strong performance, was able to get the Panthers across the goal line 4 times over the weekend, 3 passes and 1 run of 72 yards, and the Panthers fall short. Want to give a congratulations to the Howard Bison. They were victorious for the SWAC championship that was held on the campus of Prairie View A&M University over the weekend. They were victorious over Grambling by the score of 1-0. So Lady Bison winning their 3rd title in 5 years since coming over to the conference to play soccer. They do not offer soccer in the MEAC, and the buzz in the air now is that Howard might try to go join up with a couple of their sister schools who are natural competitors from the MEAC, that of Delaware State, and a couple of other ones that have soccer. There's a conference I'm not familiar exactly. I have to research a little bit more on who they're connected to, but they're talking about possibly going back over because expenses and everything that has come with this journey to come over to the Southwestern Athletic Conference. But nonetheless, they are victorious for the 2018 championship. Pretty good response and turnout for the soccer event on the campus of Prairie View. This was the 3rd year of a 3-year obligation. Not really sure if they'll continue on with that, but it is what it is. And also the standings, we know technically we are now officially out when it comes to football for this 2018 campaign. We got 2 huge games left with Alabama State and Texas Southern, and that will have to give some measuring sticks on how this team is going to approach and deal with the adversity that we're facing right now for this 2018 campaign. We'll hear a little bit more in detail about that on tomorrow's show with some more clips and interviews and this, that, and the other. However, I want to get your undivided attention of a special show we're going to have for you today. We were able to sit down with Fred Washington on last Friday in discussion about the future of athletics here at Prairie View A&M University and a little bit more. Some things that were obviously discussed and some things that may be letting off a subliminal message, but I'll let you determine that later on. So we'll now transition over and allow you to listen to the interview with Athletic Director for the Prairie View A&M University Panthers, Fred Washington. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mike Prince with the Mike Prince Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network. We are fortunate to be in the presence of the newly appointed Athletic Director for Prairie View A&M University. Time's changed since we last spoken.
Yeah.
Mr. Fred Washington, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you for making yourself available. It took us a little while, but we finally got it all lined up and ready. Well, with everything moving along, it's a lot going on as we're sitting here now, hosting a tournament, football, volleyball, things are going on. But you got somewhat of an inside advantage, I'll say. This is not the first time around, second time around. So how are you grabbing into this seat to take on the duties of athletic director?
Sure, thank you. The landscape is very different now, so there's a lot of different moving parts and things that I'm trying to get my hands around. My focus then and my focus now hasn't really changed. My focus is on student athlete success and providing the resources and support for them to be successful off the playing field. And I think when we do those things, it correlates to success on the playing field. So I'm just really trying to get a really good handle on where we are as a program, where our student athletes are, and what resources we can put in. That's where I've spent most of this time.
So most of the time, just getting in the actual captain seat, and it's one thing to look at it from afar, but now that you're actually there, is there anything different that you have noticed on being in the actual seat now than under that interim flag?
Well, now the interim flag, people say that back and forth. You're talking about since June, since I came back, or the first time in 2008?
Well, but I guess both of them, because there still was the other time it was like, okay, this kept going, and then next thing you know, it's 5 years down the road.
Sure.
And then this last time, because last we spoke, you said, well, hey, I'm not even interested in this. But so I'm pretty sure there were a set of eyes on that situation, a set of eyes then, and then the actual eyes now.
Sure. So I think the main difference from 2008 to now is resources. We're a very different program financially now and then. So in 2008 we were probably in the mid threes, $3 million program, and now depending on which report you read, we're between $12 and $15 million program. I'm still not exactly sure where we are. Obviously, we're still early on in our fiscal year, and I'm still going through those reports. But resource-wise, it's night and day. So that piece of it. The other difference is the landscape in the NCAA has changed. Some of their focus has changed. You remember in 2008, initially the APR program wasn't a punitive program; it was a measure, and it's a punitive program now. If you fail to meet certain levels, then there are some consequences to that. So that's a different in and of itself. But all in all, I mean, we're talking about young people developing and moving on from here to where they're trying to go. So that part of it is still the same. We talked a little bit last time about the 2%, only 2% of the athletes, regardless of sport, regardless of institution, go on to be professional athletes. And so the landscape is still the same in terms of having to create an opportunity for success for the 98% of the student population that do not go on to play professional sports.
Now, you spoke about the APR landscape has changed since you were last here. It's no secret that the last time under the watch, there was some APR concerns or challenges now. Mm-hmm. How does that experience back then with the challenges that you had under your watch prepare you for now, knowing that there are different circumstances and penalties involved?
Well, we didn't have, again, when I was athletic director before, APR wasn't punitive. It was a measure, and so we knew where we were. We knew what the challenges were that we inherited and the goals to provide resources and opportunities for them to be successful. We didn't have a risk of, oh, you're not playing in the postseason or you're not eligible. Those are towards the end of my tenure, those things came around. But we had a really, really aggressive program and an improvement plan that sought to address those. And so our graduation rates when I was here at the end last time were through the roof. We were one of the best at it. And now APR is a multi-year measure, so you don't go from bad to good overnight. But the course was set and the path was there. And so I think they have still retained a pretty good track record since I left to now. But there are some things that the measure doesn't always capture. Just because you pass doesn't mean that you've learned everything that you've had the opportunity to learn or that you've gotten all the support that you needed to get. And those are the things that we're trying to work on right now.
Right, and you just spoke about how the initiatives have changed from the NCAA. Now they're actually rewarding pretty handsomely financially for APR success.
Sure.
And they said you have liberty to put this money in whatever area you choose to that. Sure. So with that, does that kind of make you lick your chops and say, let's go out here and get this extra money?
You always want to get as many resources as you can put together, but this institution is takes on and owns the responsibility of providing the resources necessary to make our students successful. If we can get some extra resources from somewhere, I think we're all open to do that. But that doesn't change our responsibility whether they give it to us or not. So we're going to do the things necessary. I just had a meeting this morning on some facility changes for the academic areas that I want to try to do, and so we're going to be aggressive. When I came back over here and started looking around in June when I was asked to do that, I really did not get into all those things. Everything that is on the table now, I really was focused on fan experience and student success. Those are the two areas where I said I was going to focus. And fortunately, because I did that, I have a pretty good plan ahead that's going to start touching the things, and people will start to see them pretty quickly come about.
Speaking right now with Fred Washington, Athletic Director for Prairie View A&M University. You just spoke about fan experience, and I'm pretty sure that was a key focus for you, as you mentioned, when you were on this last watch. What is it about the fan experience now that you were observing that you would like to see change, and what are some of the plans to implement that?
Well, the biggest thing from a fan experience we have to get addressed quickly is we have to be able to get people into our facilities a lot faster than we had been. So, I've been here a long time, but for the last 5 years, I've been a fan attending these things. And so, contrary to belief, I didn't really observe what everybody experiences, what they go through. I have my personal experiences on what I do and how I get in, which is maybe different from how another person does it. So the first two in football, by example, the first two games, I really use those as observations pieces to try to figure out what systems do we have in place, what are we doing, what's working, what's not working. And now that we have 2 games of data, even though those games were different. Homecoming is its own animal, and then the Southern game was its own animal. Now I have a better handle on, what are people experiencing, what are they handle, what do we need to get better at. So you're going to see at this next game, you're going to start to see some of those changes that we're going to put in place that are going to help people get in a lot smoother. We're going to have a lot more communication with people so they know in advance what to expect. And then we're going to try to figure out technology. What the biggest burden was placed on fans, good and bad. It was an effort to do something good. We have this thing with this new ticketing system when we went to the mobile app, right, where people can mobile app their tickets and they can use those at the gates. Well, that is what really was driving the backlog, because you have a mobile ticket and you get out here and you have a device that isn't bringing up your ticket, but you're next in line. We're stuck trying to figure out how to get you in until we resolve that, and everybody behind you is stuck waiting. So we're going to try to figure out what we can do better. I think for the next 2 games, we're probably not going to do the mobile app piece, Mike, because there's a Wi-Fi and a service issue out here that people can't get around. I can't make cricket service better. I don't have anything to do with it.
You got to pick on cricket.
Well, I just picked on them. I'm sprinting. Sprint gives me problems sometimes too. But if we find that is the main driver, all right, that platform, it's not that we don't want to do that, but until we can do it efficiently and until we can support the customers properly, then that's a service that we just can't provide. And that really was a big part of this backlog of people getting into the stadium during our first 2 games.
Well, let me ask this question. I'm not really, like I said, my entry experience is totally different. Sure. Because as a season ticket holder and then media part of the media, I go through a different experience.
Exactly.
Do you have maybe a disability line or a handicap access line where people with disabilities, handicap, or senior citizens can access, that kind of expedite the services as well, and maybe who's accompanying that person can get into the line? So, I don't know if you have
I do. Thank you. Next week, you're going to start to see a couple different forms of communication come out to communicate with the fans and the guests of what options are available to them. So these are just some small ones, and it'll be detailed out in the communication. But first, we're going to open. So generally, you see that the gates open 2 hours before kickoff. All right, so 30 minutes before that, we're going to roll 30 minutes early and allow people with disabilities and special needs to start entering 30 minutes before that. All right, so there will be we changed it already where you can enter the facility from any gate. So if you have a seat on the west side, you don't have to enter on the west side. You can actually enter on the east side. So wherever the lines are moving and wherever you park and walk up, you can enter from that gate. So disability, yes. The disability areas we have disability entry on the east and the west, but on the 30 minutes early, the east side, you can enter if you need special assistance. So that's going to start with this next game. That's one thing. The other thing that we're going to do is if you're a season pass holder at gate 11, that gate will be exclusive to season pass holders until 30 minutes before kickoff. 30 minutes before kickoff, it's going to open up to everybody because we're trying to get everybody in. But I looked at the traffic information, the data reports to tell me when are people coming. So we've been getting about 2,000 people that are starting to come in right when the gate starts. But the 30 minutes before kickoff, we just get a flood of people. That's based on the data reports. We did most of our traffic activity starting at 30 minutes before kickoff, and that just causes a lot of congestion, a lot of backlog. So we're going to, again, provide that special access for handicaps 30 minutes before the regular gates open. We're going to isolate gate 11 for season ticket holders, and then we're going to move our suite and Panther Room entrance to the administration building as their entry point, which creates another access points and take people out of these lines. And then by taking the mobile app piece out for this next game as a pilot to see how we go, we think we can move people a lot faster. And then I have some things that we're probably not going to get done that quickly because it calls for some devices that are going to make the student lines move better. And if we can move the student lines better, there's 4 entry points on the west side of campus for the student lines. If we can move those lines better, it's going to give us 2 additional lines for the general population. So there's a lot of work that's going in, but I had to see it. I had to see what was going on and understand the equipment and devices, and it took a little bit of time to do that. But I have 2 games under my belt now of seeing, and the staff is aggressively moving with these new initiatives.
All right, talking again with Fred Washington, alumnus Fred Washington, athletic director Fred Washington of the Prairie View A&M University Panthers. It's amazing how time flies, man. I know I was a lot slim. I would say we were walking around here on this campus together, and you know how it's always been instilled with us about Prairie View produces productive people, and that's synonymous. If you take one away, and it doesn't mean the same. If I take away the producers, Prairie View productive people, that doesn't work. Prairie View produces people, that doesn't work. It's that produces productive people. Sure. And that's part of that rich tradition that we've had. And I'm not just echoing this with Mike. This is not a Mike Prince thing. I get calls, and I'm pretty sure you get calls, but it's a question that I must ask as an alumnus, as a fan, as a supporter. Does it, in your opinion, kind of concern you that how our colors have gotten off course with the representation of our teams on the playing fields?
I think first of all, we've had some conversations with our coaches and our staffs, and we're going to incorporate more of our core colors in our uniforms going forward. Sure, it does. You want to be as true and as consistent as you can about the product and the images that you present. So yeah, we've drifted on that. In some ways, we changed our imagery a couple of times over the past few years. So yeah, those are definitely things that we're going to try to tighten up and be more consistent about. At the same time, Mike, it's important for us and our fans to keep in mind that the students of today don't view the world the same way that we view things in the purest sense of it. I had a conversation with an alum a couple of years ago when I was athletic director before, and he was very concerned about the use or the incorporation of the color black, right? And we were having this conversation at a basketball game in the Dome. He and I were sitting together, and I said, I'm going to illustrate for you what I, as an administrator, the challenge that I face in having this conversation with you. And I called over at the time the student government president, and if you remember, we had just redone the Dome floor, and it incorporated the black into it. And so I brought over the student government president as a impromptu discussion with the alum sitting there, and I said, hey, what do you think about the new floor? And I let the alumnus hear what the student said. And the student was very excited about everything that we had done and the fact that the floor and the design was created by a student, right? And so there's definitely a need and an importance of incorporating and including our base colors in everything that we do and the way that we showcase and brand our images. But Right now, teams in football, using football as an example, teams are using, I think they have six uniforms designs, and they mix them up a little bit. It's very difficult to stay pure in a six uniform concept, right? And so we're going to do the best that we can. We're going to incorporate our colors, and we'll be pure to the Panther tradition.
Okay, now with the student involvement, very much needed. But part of their involvement is also guiding them along the traditional
Sure.
lines of what's what. The new design, I'm all for that, but the core is going to be the core.
It
And
definitely is.
you've been a military guy. You were Army, right?
I'm Army.
Okay, so it was green, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but it was green when I was in there. The military colors and military designs change based on the terrain in which we are in combat
Right.
with. So
But that core, your core color is
Yeah.
your core color, whatever
Yeah.
that base is, that would
Yeah,
be the
sure.
base for that. And that's all I was saying on that part. Now, as far as the six uniforms, I'm kind of old school
Yeah.
myself. The kids gonna look good, but they look better when they're winning and
Yeah.
successful.
Sure. Yeah.
And I guess what for me the challenge was, I would hear that they didn't have the color that we
Well,
need.
yeah. What you're talking about, and this is new for me. What you're talking about is when you look at the color, when you look or use a color gold. All right, there's a difference between a printed color gold, right, and the material gold,
Mhm.
and what companies are stocking. All right, and so that's kind of what the our colors are color coded, and so let's say our color code is 475. Well, if they don't have a knit version color 475, they're going to give you the closest variation of that color in the material, and so you do run into that. I'm not going to sit here today and say that is necessarily the reason for everything that has occurred. But we are working with Adidas. We're going to work with our partners, and we're going to be as pure as we can to incorporating Prairie View colors and everything that we
Right.
do going forward.
Because I know when we walked around here, it was that
Mhm.
color, and then we have other schools. I'm thinking of Alcorn and
Yeah.
Alabama State. They have a version of the gold that would be
Yeah.
acceptable.
Sure.
And even if we had to say, okay, well, whatever code they got,
Right.
incorporate that with us.
Yeah.
And those are the things, because when we talk about building the tradition and the legacy that we have, the young students follow our lead.
Sure.
They are the future,
Right.
and whatever. I don't even mind you add the blacks the neutral color,
Yeah.
but not changing the principal core.
Sure, we're gonna, as I said, we're gonna do everything that we can to incorporate our core colors and I don't want to say initiate the brand or
Right.
initiate the tradition, because we're 130 plus years old, so we have
141.
we have a rich history and a rich tradition, and we're just gonna do a better job of showcasing that.
All right. Speaking again with Athletic Director Fred Washington of Prairie View A&M University Panthers. I had the luxuries and the pleasures of listening to your interview on KPVU just last week.
Yeah.
And you say, hey, I'm old school. No pass, no play. And that's
House Bill 72.
House Bill 72.
Texas,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
And I echo the same thing. And with that being said, as a university, as an institution, it has been agreed upon that we increase the GPA to a 275 or something.
You're talking about admission.
Admission, right?
Mhm.
Because the expectance and the aspirations of excellence.
Mhm.
And you may mention now that the budget is almost quadrupled what it was when you were last. In the last report that I had done, it was like at $12.9 million, which means as that increases, expectations increases. You being in the catbird seat, in that, I'll call it that trifold measure, now being in that front run of the seat, do you have a particular grading system for your coaching staff?
When you say a grading system, so I don't know that term correlates. So here's how I view the world of sports in general. Okay? So as an evaluation tool as a university, we have an annual performance evaluation. All right, and so in that performance evaluation, you get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And so 1 is below or poor. 2 is almost there but not quite there. 3 is meets expectation. 4 is
Exceeds.
exceeds expectations, and 5 is significantly exceeds expectations. And that is the university's tool for performance. So if you wanted to grade it or use it as a grading tool, then basically if you look at the finishes of a team, right, in
Okay.
their respective category, let's use soccer. All right, and so soccer, when this all weighs out, did soccer finish 3 or better? If they finished at 3, then they met expectations. If they finished at 2, then they would have exceeded expectations. If they finished at 1, they significantly exceeded expectation. That's the general way that those kind of things correlate. Now, when you get behind that, there are always other things and other variables that you look at. Obviously, we have an academic measure that we apply into there, and then you look at other things about the development and the growth of student athletes. So there are other measures, and then there's things that you take into consideration beyond that. When we're using soccer as an example. Our soccer coach had a what do you call it, a international access issue where the coach didn't arrive here until very late, almost right before the first competitions. So that impacts the performance of a team. So to say, oh, you didn't finish 3 or better when of all of the schools in the conference, you're probably the only school that didn't have a camp, the only school that didn't have recruiting, so you basically used what you had. Those are things that you have to take into consideration. But yeah, there's a general measure, and as a university, we have an evaluation tool that I used before as a general tool to measure, and I plan to use the same thing. Obviously, this year's evaluations were ones that I inherited, and a lot of these guys have the way that our sports are broken down. Part of the sports teams report through Miss Pete, and part of them report to me. But we'll be consistent about the way that we do that.
Okay. Now, do you have a particular formula that you use? I heard you break down some of the grading, the win loss.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other attributes that can contribute to that?
I mean, I think they're pretty straightforward. I think grading is one I mean, I'm saying win loss is obviously a public variable that everybody says. The way that the students, because we're APR measured, the way that the students are dealing that are under your team are dealing with graduation rates and academic progress rates. Those things are very variable. Then the types of things that you're doing. I'm a civic person, so I believe that as a team, we have more than just a performance. We're a part of the community. We're part of the environment in which what type of things are you engaging and including the student athletes in. I wouldn't say that right now here today there's an exact measure tool. For me, with each of the sports, I'm still just a few months in, and so I'm still learning a lot more about the business. But at its core, whether or not you're winning, whether or not the students are appropriately progressing as students, and whether or not you as a program are getting our student athletes involved and included in things that will make them better as people. Those are the 3 tools if you wanted to package them up.
Okay.
Outside of that, I don't know what you would measure a coach on.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, that's just fair enough to answer,
Mm-hmm.
just to get an assessment of the direction in which things go. Because, as you say, you're just getting in, but you've been in. It's almost like a catch-22 for you
Sure.
because you've had this success before you're here, and now you're here
Well, I
again.
mean, there's a perception. There is a general perception that just because I was here before, I should know all of these things already. But it's been a 5-year gap, and there's and as a professional, my mind was elsewhere. I was focused on the things that I was responsible for, and so there is a learning curve in which you just have to figure out. I asked the staff last week, this is a $12 million organization. Right, there's a lot of learning that goes into a $12 million organization. Not that it wasn't an easier learn before, but it was a $3 million organization. So there was a different learning curve that I had then. And the other difference that is absence here. When I came in 2008, we really merged athletics with my auxiliary staff. So I didn't have to learn everything because different pieces of my staff picked up different elements of this operation. All right, and so now in this transition, I didn't bring my auxiliary staff with me. And so I'm learning new people and new ways of doing business and what's happening. So it's a little bit of a difference. Not that it is some monumental task that we can't overcome. There are things that it's going to take a little bit more time to learn because the people who learned it and operated it for me before, just not a part of this transition this time.
Okay, and when you come in and you have an immediate short-term assessment or adjusting,
Mm-hmm.
and then a long-term goal, what is the immediate need that you think needs to be addressed here at the athletic department, and then what do you think are some long-term goals?
The immediate lead, I think we've started to address already with the realignment of the staff. So I don't have it right in front of me, Mike. I'll send it to you. I did a first 90 days platform, the things that I was going to aggressively seek to address in the first 90 days. All right, and one of those things was the realignment of the staff. And so probably last week or the week before, you saw that I brought Anitra Addison as one of my AVPs. She was AVP with me in auxiliary, and so she will address the fiscal structure and the way that I do business financially. So she's working on those things. She'll attack those. She did a pretty good job with auxiliary services. And then we're going to get into the operational things. And so I promoted Miss Pete. Miss Pete, who was over here, been a part of this team, was a part of the team when I was here before. And she's going to have a committed area of focus. And it'll start with student athlete experience and then accountability and progress for the coaches. So that was the first, really the first thing that I wanted to do. There are a couple of things structurally that I still have to address and still trying to get through the pipeline of change, if you will. But that was really at the core of everything that I wanted to do. One of the things that I saw almost immediately in getting back started in June and July was just an inconsistency and clarity in the way that we do business. How do you get from point A to point Z? As a department in terms of processing things, accountability checks and balances, and it just wasn't. If there isn't a place where I, as executive member of this institution who's been here long, if I can't understand how you're processing things, then it's very difficult, I would imagine, for the rest of the operational staff to really know what they're supposed to do. I mean, I've worked in so many capacities and been a part of so many teams that I really do understand our fiscal processes, our policies, and our rationale and why we're doing it. And if I, with all of that knowledge, couldn't plug in and get things done, then I would imagine for the users, it was a monumental task. So we're going to clean those things up, and I think we've cleaned up a lot of them already, and it's just going to keep getting better and keep getting easier for them.
And I think one of the most, frustrating words would be the word of transparency.
Sure.
Because we'll hear the word transparency,
Mm-hmm.
but then when we go to find out what is actually going on, it's like either there's a confusion or people who should know don't know,
Mm-hmm.
or it could appear that no one cares.
Sure.
When that frustrating circle
Sure.
starts to embed.
Well, we're going to do the right things for the right reasons and do the best that we can to do them the right way. And I think if we stay focused on that and with the end goal in mind of continuous improvement, I think people will see the improvements that we're going to make. You know, I get a lot of emails and I get a lot of calls, and I'm an alum and I walk around and a lot of people talk to me. So, over the last 5 years, I heard a lot of comments, and so I get different things that people make as a priority issue for them,
Mm-hmm.
and not that whether I discredit them or not, nothing like that. It's that often in order to get somewhere, there's a couple of other things that must happen in order for that to take place. So sure, we've had it's been a challenge getting in the facility the last few years with parking and things like that. But if people look at it, I guarantee you that this execution of the parking plan was much better this last 2 years because we were engaged. We had a plan to get people in. We were able to get people with disabilities and needs and stuff like that, special support, transportation, getting to and from the vehicles. So we attacked it, but we still need to get some parking support services on the west side of our campus. It will change everything about the feed and the move into the campus. And so if you look up on my action board up there, you see my action board has west side parking in it. So we hear those things, but I can't build a parking lot overnight. It's going to take a little bit of time to get that in there, but that is again one of the things that we have on the plan. So those are you asked about short term. So short term, as I said, I met this morning about creating academic spaces for students to develop. That's a short term thing that's on my wish list. Restructuring the department in a way that I think allows it to flow much smoother, to be more efficient, effective, better use of resources, and to give people that sense of transparency that you're talking about. I don't think that there is a lack of caring. I think there is a lack of consistency and a lack of clarity that allows people to be clear to the customers and people calling and inquiring. So I think if we knock off some of what I think is the low-hanging fruit, get people out of lines. I'm line adverse. I do not like lines. My staff know I don't like lines. And anytime I see a line, we're going to spend some time talking about it. So we spent a lot of time last week and early this week talking about what I observed getting in those games. And so I think we have a fix-it plan, and I think that fix-it plan will work. And so we're going to test it out this game, and then we're going to keep getting better and better every game after that until that's resolved. So that's the short term. In a long term, we have to position this department to be successful. And when I say successful, I'm not saying we want to be successful in the SWAC or we want to move to another area, another unit. We want to provide the best possible product and compete in everything that we are a part of. We want to be competitive in there. And so that's financially, that's structurally, that's academically, that's on the field. Anything that you can think of, we want to be competitive in that regard. If we're a part of the show, then we want to be competitive in the show.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I'm definitely appreciating this. And from a media perspective, I've been hanging around here a long time. I've grown gray. I won't say you've grown gray.
I'm gray too.
I'm just saying, I can only speak for me on my end. But I've grown gray, been around here. Are there going to be any considerations of how media is handled
What do you mean
in the future? Well, before there were accessible opportunities to get with coaching, and I would ask for student permission, through the coaches or whatnot, because students are different from coaches. But to keep promoting and keeping the news of the success of the program, just like we're in the middle of the soccer tournament right now, volleyball is wrapping up. And all your non-revenue sports and this, that, and the other, we know that they're happening, but a lot of people are not aware that they're happening, even with the things that are happening with the big sports, basketball, football, to let alone the other ones that are that low-hanging fruit.
Sure.
And is there going to be a revisitation of accessibility on who can?
I think the answer to that is yes. What exactly we're going to do, I'm not really clear on. So we've had a couple of, I think data sharing and communication is definitely a place where we got to get better at. All right, so we've had a couple of conversations with university, university marketing communications in terms of how we partner with them. We haven't been good at partnering and sharing and providing access to internal organizations. So there's no doubt that we're probably not being very good at doing those things to external organizations. So we're right now working on those relationships and those partnerships and getting them to do some things for us that I think is going to get that engine flowing a little bit better. And once that is happening, it's just obviously going to extend out to all of the partners that work in that space. So I think yes, I believe that multiple forms of sharing and communication and giving touches to the fans is appropriate. I think different people try to access us in terms of data information and flow like that in different ways, and we need to be in a position to share it with them wherever they are. So yeah, I think we'll get better at that. I think you'll see some of those things happen. Some of them have probably already started to happen, but change comes as information is available, right? And so when you say, are we going to handle it different? I need to understand a little bit better how we're handling them now in order to say what change is going to happen in that regard. But access will improve.
I could go into it, or we can wait till after this is over with.
Whatever works. I don't shy from information or things like that. So whatever works best.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll say that for after the fact, because the bottom line is we want to make sure that the people get the proper information, the right information, and information that is going to help move in the right direction, whether it's good, bad, or ugly,
sure.
Because we can't hide from something that obviously needs to be addressed. Sure. Let's expose it so then we can kill it, then we can move forward. Sure. So I think if we're trying to be in a covert operational mode, it has a tendency to have things go awry.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy on either side.
Yeah.
So we deal with it nip in the bud. We're producing productive people because we've always stepped up to the challenge.
Sure.
And I'm excited about what I'm hearing about the opportunities that are flowing for PV Nation. And my last thing would be, and you talked about the marketing
Mm-hmm.
ability from an alumnus perspective, outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
I think we spend too much money on an obvious game that's going to take care of itself and not enough on
You talking about
promoting the other game.
homecoming?
Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
Once people find out the date of homecoming,
Mm-hmm.
it takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the marketing influence or concentration should be on the other games
Mm-hmm.
to make those mini homecoming
Sure.
events than we would for
Well,
the
I
homecoming.
think we started that already, Mike. I think if you came to the Southern game, which had its own field, you saw that we
Yes.
started a what they called Panther Fest, which is a pregame activity, and we've created an alumni tailgate area through alumni affairs. Those are deliberate things designed to make those games events. All right, whether or not they ever become at the magnitude of a homecoming, is in HBCU sports, homecoming is an animal of itself
Exactly.
across the board. And so I
Exactly.
don't know that we replicate that, but I don't know if I talked about it on your show or on another show earlier this summer, but sports attendance in general across the spectrum has declined. All right, and so those sports venues and sports activities that have been successful in sustaining themselves or growing have made the activities events, not just a game. And so you saw that begin with the Southern game. You saw Panther Fest, you saw fun areas, you saw youth areas, you saw an alumni area. That's the beginning of that. And so you're going to see that replicate. We didn't do that for homecoming, but you'll see it replicated for
Alabama State,
Alabama State, and then for Texas
Texas
Southern
Southern.
at the end. You're going to see
Hmm.
those things replicated, and you'll see them grow. There's a lot of movable parts in there that we have to get better at, and so each one of them takes a little bit of their own time in order to grow into what it's going to be. The other thing is we're going to get better at engaging people where they are, at finding out what's important and what's relevant, and trying to figure out how to incorporate that. So I'm going to take a little liberty now and share something that people are going to start hearing about. So this year we know is the 20-year anniversary of our win when we had been losing for several years. All right, and so in recognizing that and recognizing the importance for that, people are going to start seeing an invitation from me and from us as a program to those young men who participated as members of our football team, not just in the year that they won the game, but in the 9.5 years in which we were struggling, because that time for us was very relevant, and it made what we are doing today possible. All right, so we're inviting those guys back for the Texas Southern game. We're going to have a slate of activities starting that Friday that includes them and recognizing what that time and what that transition meant to us. So that's another thing that we're doing. I mean, there are so many different things that popped into my head right now. We also partner with enrollment management. Enrollment management every year brings students to campus in November to visit and doing all that. Well, we're incorporating that into the game this year. So when we have the November 17th game, you're going to see 1,700, 2,000, 2,500, whatever the final number is, high school students that are at our games, that are there as our guests, that are learning about Prairie View culture. I've talked to several groups, and I said I thought we missed a big opportunity when we opened this facility, because we talk about this home and visitor side all the time, and we don't have a visitor side of this facility. It's a east side and it's a west side, and the struggle and the part that I think so many people miss is, when we stream a game or we watch a game on TV, when we have ESPN in here, our camera decks show the east side of the stadium. Right, so when we played Southern and that Southern game was on ESPN3, we showcased Southern's band, we showcased Southern's alumni and fans, we showcased Southern's football team. Right, we missed an opportunity. That lower deck of that east side should have probably been tasked as our student and our performance basis. We probably should have had the band over there. We should have had our student section over there. We should have had done all of that, and it would have created that venue where we're showcasing Prairie View when we put something on TV, and we're just not doing that right now.
So is that a possible
Well, we started
redirection?
having the conversations, but change is not something that is very easy. For the band to relocate where we put them, that's a conversation and that's an agreement that they have to come to Or we uproot them, and they're a part of our alumni. They're a part of our support groups. They're a part of what we do, and the band is very important to us. So we would need them to understand that and to agree with it. I already worked out a relationship with the Gold Members Club. You see, the Gold Members Club already moved from the west side to the east side. We started by moving, when we did the Southern game, we moved the freshman population over to the east side to try to start this transition. But it's going to take 3 or 4 years to get that thing done, to really create the environment that we want over there. And people look at the stadium. Here's what's funny. I mean, you look at the stadium at homecoming and you say, oh, man, we got all of these vacant seats. Well, the seats ain't not sold. They're sold, but people want to hang out on the west side because that's where everybody is, because that's how we created this environment.
I mean, you just walked right into this next question, because about the attendance.
Sure.
You made a comment about how it has become an event, and it's obvious that the event has kind of taken over the actual game experience. With that being said, I reached out to the NCAA as far as attendance and how it's credited, and they strictly say it's on the universities on how attendance is reported. Here, I don't know if there's an actual answer to this, but sometimes the attendance that is reported doesn't match what it appears to be in the stadium. And I know those are tickets sold, and that's great. Is there any way to incorporate tickets sold and then actual number of people in that game on that event?
You're not reporting the ticket sold number plays into a variable when you're trying to be BCS. So you have to have 15,000 tickets sold or more for the BCS category. So that's one thing. What you're supposed to be reporting on game day is attendance, right? You're reporting how many people actually came into the stadium and sat there. That's your attendance number when you're doing your end of the game stat report that rolls up. All right. So the challenge that we have had here, Mike, is we've had problems with the data tracking system in the check-in. By example, when I just said the mobile app thing doesn't work and we end up working out something to let that person in. That's not one person. That's a lot of people. So when you see the ticket report, that number didn't go in there because their ticket wasn't scanned. That's why they went to this scanning system to try to get accurate, immediate data. As the post-game stat sheet comes out, you have your data that comes right in from your ticketing system. Well, that has been problematic here. Right, and so there's a couple of things that roll into this imagery that we're trying to work on. First of all, in trying to be great hosts, we created seats. Let's say the seats that aren't seat back, right? So we had the option of saying how much space do you want to commit to space 217, non-seat back seat, right? And so the seats specifications that we have is about the required space for 1.5 person. It's one seat, but it can accommodate 1.5 person. So when two people come together and sit to the game, they're not sitting on the number that they're assigned because it'll be a gap between them. They sit together, right? And what does that do? It creates a space that looks like a void. So our ticketing system that we have in place doesn't have the capacity right now. It will as we work through it into next year, but it doesn't have the capacity to do what we call standing room only or SROs. So I can only sell right now 15,000 seats because that's what we have programmed in our space. Even though we built a stadium and we said it holds 15,000 seats, it can probably hold closer to 18,000 based on
19,000
based on the capacity and the way that we designed it. Right, and so as we fix those little things, you will start to see the appearance of this facility fill up. As we start to get to where we say, hey, we make the east side a place where people understand this is our side, and we can move the band, and we can move the freshmen, we can move the students, and they create and have their fun over there on camera. As that becomes more popular, and those people don't start migrating over to the west, hanging out under the bleachers, which is what's happening right now, then you can start to see the space fill up. There's a lot of things that contribute into that. We're selling well. We have great attendance. It's just not visually showing itself because of the way that we're functioning.
Okay, and I just thought about this while you were explaining. When you have the technology that fails, I just thought of an old school approach that could be a win-win for everybody involved. We have these Greek organizations and other clubs that need community service hours, whatever they need.
Yeah.
if we have, how many gates do we have?
There's 14 gates, but
13.
not all of them are access gates.
Right,
And
but
the student organizations are good. So,
right.
there's pros and cons to student organization at that capacity. So with parking this year, you see that in managing that, we incorporated ROTC, the Army and the Navy ROTC, and they did a great job for us, and they're reliable. Student organizations, it really comes down to management and leadership. To realistically believe you're going to get good student organization participation at homecoming is unrealistic. For the other games and the activities, it's very realistic for the student organizations that want community service hours or want to earn things. So yeah, we're definitely going to do more. So I've partnered formally with student engagement. We
Mm-hmm.
already done that, and they're going to help us understand how can we partner with all of the student groups, all the
Right.
student organizations. You got the PAN, you got the non-PAN, you got the gold members, you got multiple groups that all function through
You even have
student
student
engagement.
athletes who could be a part of what I was about to
Well,
explain.
student athletes is a slippery slope.
No, no, I understand that, but this is what I'm talking about just for accurate counting. That's all I
Sure.
was talking about. Whatever, how many access points you could have two students assigned
Yeah.
per the gate.
Yeah, with clickers. We just had a planning meeting. We went through all of the different scenarios. There's turnstiles, there's clickers,
Well,
there's
turnstiles would cost a little bit more money to
not
incorporate.
necessarily, not necessarily.
Really?
Not necessarily. I mean, we're staffing it with contract employees now. So you have mobile turnstiles, rentable turnstiles, a whole bunch of different ways. So the staff, we went through a lot of different scenarios. The count is relevant. We want to know what's at our games. We need to get it, and we're going to work through those things. We're not going to have a finished product in those things this year. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
knock them off one by. The first thing before I get an accurate count, for me, that's important is getting people in smoothly and easily into the game.
Right.
That's first. Once I'm doing that effectively, then I can work on making sure that I'm getting the counts and the information that I need, because the counts and the information really benefit us in promotion, branding, and selling, and
different
partnerships,
marketing
things like that. It
opportunities.
doesn't
Right.
it doesn't really change anything for me. We're not applying. We haven't applied for BCS status, so whether I hit 15,000 or whether I got 12.9 doesn't impact that. The only thing that would impact me is the revenues of the tickets sold, which is the other number, and I don't collect that through the scanning and gate access. I collect that through the sales data.
Okay, okay, fair enough. I'm thanking you for this opportunity for the sit down. I always give my guests an opportunity to give some final thoughts and comments, and the floor is now yours, sir.
Well, I touched on it a little bit. I think that the thing that is most relevant and most important to me right now that I'd like to share again with you and with your listeners is this effort that we're going to try to do on Thanksgiving weekend when we play TSU. For so many years, I've interacted and talked with young men who participated during that era, and we just haven't really brought closure to that for them and even for us. My goal in doing this is really twofold. One, when I look at that era, we lost a lot of football games. Everybody knows that. But the narrative associated with that is losing, right? But the young men that played and participated back then, as I see them and I interact with them, most of them are very, very successful in their own regard, professionally in their careers as family men, what have you. And so I want to change that narrative. They're not losers. They're not losers, and we didn't lose in that rate. They were not, as I say, they were not defeated as people. They lost on the field. We didn't have the resources and the things that everybody else had that we were competing against, and it was a dark time for us on the playing surface. But just because we lost the game doesn't mean that we were defeated in life. We produced productive people, as you have said, and those young men went on to be productive people. So we want to invite them back. We're trying to figure out all of the different ways to communicate and contact with them. So if somebody's listening now and they know someone who participated in that time, they should see a landing spot on our page here no later than Monday, when they can go out and give us their information, tell us how to reach out to them and get a little bit of information about what we're doing. So the thing that I'm closing with, Mike, is asking for help from the PV Nation and identifying these young men, and then if possible coming out on for our season finale, our home season finale when we play Texas Southern, to help recognize them for what they did and what they meant to us. Because going out on that playing field with no scholarships, with probably not the best uniform, without the best training opportunities and resources available to them, and representing us the way that they did for almost 10 years needs to be commended, and I want to do that this year.
Well, September 26, 1998 was the date of change for PV Nation. 80 no more, victorious over Langston 14-12 in Oklahoma. We saluted that team with a 3-day episode, spoke with the head coach, Coach Johnson, and about 10 of the players that we did in-depth reports on. So whatever we can do to help you get in contact and lined up with those guys, we are absolutely in tune with that, and deservedly so, because they did a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. The facility that we overlook right now couldn't be. Those young men then pressed toward the mark. Exactly. And so we're thankful for each and every one of them. Thankful for you, sir, for making yourself available. Remember, I am the radio guy to Dr. Mike Prince. You can contact us on our social medias at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, The Mike Prince Show. The YouTube channel is Open Mic Broadcast Network, and of course the website is obnradio.com. And until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.